tech giants stand on use of controversial facial recognition tech. The big problem with facial recognition is that as the technology gets faster and more accurate, there are worries that it will be used for mass surveillance. Facial recognition technology, as the name suggests, can identify a person by capturing his face from a photo or video. Facebook is phasing out its facial recognition tool, the company announced in a blog post written by Jerome Pesanti, VP of Artificial Intelligence. Facebook claims while over 1/3 of its daily active users had the feature turned on and found it useful, it was moving away from the technology given regulatory uncertainty. But Facebook's step back comes at a time when there is growing scrutiny of the use of facial recognition technology, especially by the police in many countries. We take a look at why facial recognition technology is viewed as controversial, and where other tech companies and policymakers stand on it. For example, in Google Photos or even Apple Photos, the app will try and bucket photos of a person and ask users to identify the face. All of this is possible due to a form of facial recognition technology being used by these services. On Facebook too, it was possible to turn on the feature and have the service automatically identify oneself if they were part of any photos or videos uploaded by friends or family. But companies such as Amazon, Microsoft have made it possible to use the technology at a much bigger scale and to analyze more than just images from your phone's library. The technology is also outsourced to governments and law enforcement agencies, which has sparked concerns on its use.
This is just part of an ongoing effort in order to clean up its image along with its rebranding as well.
Yeah, I think it has to be part of that process. I mean, when you think about how long Facebook has had this technology, I mean, they've been using it since 2010, so over a decade. The fact that they would get rid of it right now, a week after, not even a full week after rebranding the company, to me is a sign that, they're trying to turn over a new page here. They want to be known as Meta. They want to be known as this company building the metaverse. That comes with all kinds of privacy issues, and I think this is an opportunity for them to, take one of the biggest ones, right, which is the use of facial recognition software, and put that aside and try to say, look, we're thinking about this in a responsible way.
What else are they going to need to do potentially to get that critical buy-in from regulators, but also from users that have been doubtful about the platform?
I don't know what they can do at this point because the reputation is really, so negative around Facebook. I think that nobody necessarily thinks of Facebook and says, oh, that's a company that, I trust with my data. Mm-hmm. And when you build something like the metaverse, right, you're offering them all kinds of stuff. You're offering them your name, your identity, your movements, right? You're going to be kind of in physical spaces in a virtual way. And I just think that this is a really tough hill for Facebook to climb at this point. I think the best thing that could happen would be for them to get other companies on board. If they're building this alongside the Apples and Amazons and Googles of the world, perhaps that might do something. But I think if Facebook is trying to sell this as an experience that's Facebook specific, I think that's going to be a really tough sell.
Yeah, I mean, this facial recognition technology has not been used only by Facebook, right? I mean, other companies have done it. What happens to the technology itself?
You're right. This is something that's common in a number of big tech companies, Amazon, Microsoft, Google, they all use this. Obviously, Apple has facial recognition technology. I unlock my iPhone using my face all the time. So what I think happens here is that Facebook is kind of the first of many companies that might have to kind of pull back from this. We've seen talk about regulation. There's talk from lawmakers about building rules around this type of stuff. So this might be Facebook trying to proactively avoid some of those issues. But the technology itself is not going away. So while Facebook will not use it for the social network, the company says, hey, we're still going to be building this technology, presumably for future use, presumably for the metaverse. And so, they're not abandoning the idea of it altogether. They're just simply saying, we're not going to use it for the Facebook social network anymore because of privacy issues, but we want to keep having a discussion around how we can use it in the future.
Why has Facebook removed it? While Facebook's facial recognition tool was only being used on the platform, the company is stopping the use of the tech given its controversial nature. There are several privacy concerns around the deployment of such tools, especially since Facebook is such a big social network with billions of users and many photos and videos being uploaded. In the post, Facebook has said it needs to weigh the positive use cases for facial recognition against growing societal concerns, especially as regulators have yet to provide clear rules, and it has taken this decision after careful consideration. The company has already settled a lawsuit in the state of Illinois in the U.S., where it paid nearly $550 million to a group of users who had argued that the facial recognition tool violated the state's privacy laws. A 3D printed Facebook's new rebrand logo Meta and Facebook logo are seen in this illustration. Reuters. What about Amazon? The other bigger, more controversial name around this is Amazon, which offers its recognition software as a service, SaaS, as part of its cloud services. But Recognition has faced criticism because Amazon has offered the tool to law enforcement services as well. Police enforcement groups prefer Recognition because it can track and analyze people in real time, and even identify up to 100 people in one single image. But the technology is not exactly accurate, as it has been shown in the past by the American Civil Liberties Union, ACLU. However, in a statement last year, Amazon said it was implementing a one-year moratorium on police use of Amazon's facial recognition technology. But it will continue to offer it to organizations such as Thorn, the International Center for Missing and Exploited Children, and Marinus Analytics, in order to help rescue human trafficking victims and reunite missing children with their families. The statement also called for governments to put in place stronger regulations to govern the ethical use of facial recognition technology, and hoped the U.S. Congress would take a stand on the issue and put in place appropriate rules around the use of the technology. A major criticism of Amazon's Recognition tool in the past was around its accuracy, especially when identifying people of color, and African Americans in particular. The use of the technology by law enforcement could lead to wrongful arrests and more discrimination, according to experts. Regarding criticism from rights groups about inaccuracy with the software, Amazon had responded saying they were using an outdated version. What about other tech companies? In June 2020, Microsoft also joined Amazon in saying it would not sell the technology to law enforcement until there was a federal law regulating this in the U.S. Microsoft President Brad Smith had told the Washington Post that the company had not sold its technology called Face API, part of its Azure cloud services, to police departments in the U.S. Smith was quoted as saying, "We will not sell facial recognition technology to police departments in the United States until we have a national law in place, grounded in human rights, that will govern this technology." In the past, Microsoft's Azure cloud services, which included facial recognition and identification, have been offered to the U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE, for which it faced criticism. IBM, on the other hand, announced it was exiting the business of facial recognition entirely in June 2020. IBM CEO Arvind Krishna wrote a letter to the U.S. Congress calling for regulations on the use of the technology. IBM firmly opposes and will not condone uses of any technology, including facial recognition technology offered by other vendors, for mass surveillance, racial profiling, violations of basic human rights and freedoms, or any purpose which is not consistent with our values and principles of trust and transparency, he wrote in a letter, according to CNBC. Also in Explained, why Facebook is starting. What has Google said on the use of facial recognition? In January 2020, Alphabet and Google CEO Sundar Pichai hailed the European Union for its temporary ban on the use of the technology. Google has been outspoken about the problematic nature of the technology for a while. For instance, in a 2018 blog post, Google SVP of Global Affairs Kent Walker explained why Google Cloud does not offer general-purpose facial recognition APIs, adding that policy questions around its use need to be answered. Working through important technology and policy questions. As part of its AI responsibilities declaration, Google has also raised questions about the use of facial recognition, saying the technology's implementation needs to be fair, so it doesn't reinforce or amplify existing biases, especially where this might impact underrepresented groups. It has also said that the technology should not be used in surveillance that violates internationally accepted norms, and that it needs to protect people's privacy, providing the right level of transparency and control. What have governments said about the use of facial recognition? The big problem with facial recognition is that as the technology gets faster and more accurate, there are worries that it will be used for mass surveillance. There are also worries the technology could get so good, it could deduce intent and expressions, leading to real-time surveillance. In China, the government has used the technology to track Uyghurs, the Muslim minority in the country. It was also used in the UK to monitor football fans arriving for a match in 2020. In India too, there have been concerns over the use of facial recognition technology by police, especially during protests. In the US, the Facial Recognition and Biometric Technology Moratorium Act has been proposed by some members of Congress, which would ban the use of the technology by federal entities. It would also ban other biometrics such as voice recognition, gait recognition, and recognition of other immutable physical characteristics from being used by federal entities. The bill has been sent to House committees for further consideration. Meanwhile, the European Union has passed a resolution banning the use of facial recognition technology by the police. This is a non-binding resolution. However, the use of the technology is a major concern of the EU's upcoming AI Act, which will be debated and voted upon by the EU Parliament. The bill states that AI systems which are meant for real-time and post-remote identification of people are high-level risk systems and would require compliance before the company can get access to the EU market. It also imposes restrictions on how real-time, remote biometric identification systems can be used in public spaces for the purpose of law enforcement.